Welcome to the deep dive. Today, let's put aside the digital noise for a bit.
Mm-hmm.
We're going back to basics, something really fundamental, the pencil.
Humble pencil, yeah. Seems almost old-fashioned now, doesn't it?
It does. But our source, Pencil, Power, and the Science of Learnography by Shiva Narayan Takshila Page, argues it's actually, well, incredibly powerful for learning. They call it pencil power.
Exactly. And that's what this deep dive is all about. In this age of screens and keyboards, it's easy to forget. But maybe this simple tool has, a unique edge.
That's the mission, right? To explore how this pencil power, this link between hand, brain, and learning, might actually help us transfer knowledge better, make it stick.
Precisely. How it enhances learning in ways maybe digital tools don't or can't replicate in the same way.
It really makes you pause.
Yeah.
And we maybe overlooked something vital here. In our rush for tech, did we sideline the pencil's power?
It's a really good question to start with.
Okay, so let's get into it. The core idea seems to be this tangible advantage. What does that actually mean compared to, say, typing?
Right. The basic concept is, well, pretty straightforward. Digital devices often put a layer between you and the information. You type, something appears on screen.
An intermediary?
Yes. But a pencil, that's direct. The source says, applying pencil practice connects the hand, fingers, and the brain. It's immediate, your hand moves, the mark appeals right there.
And it's not just seeing the mark, is it? It's the whole physical sensation.
Exactly. It's tactile. You feel the friction, the pressure. It engages multiple senses, multiple motor circuits in your brain all at once.
Okay.
And the theory is engaging all these pathways together creates stronger connections for that information.
Yeah.
Better learning transfer, essentially.
Which makes sense. Now, the source uses some interesting terms. Learnodynamics caught my eye. What's that about?
Yeah, learnodynamics. They define it as the specific motions, the movements of your hand and fingers when you write with a pencil.
Okay, the physical act itself.
Right. And the argument is when you physically form letters, you're not just seeing them, you're feeling those unique movements. That feeling, that learnodynamics, is thought to reinforce the learning. It helps build what they call the brain page development.
Brain page development. I like that phrase, like creating actual pages or maps in your mind.
Sort of, yeah. Like structuring the knowledge physically almost, making it more organized, and ideally easier to retrieve later.
Okay, so the physical writing helps build the mental structure. Now, linking this back to the classroom, the source contrasts just listening passively with actively using a pencil.
That's a really key distinction they make. Just sitting there listening for hours.
Yeah.
Maybe not the most effective way for knowledge to really sink in.
Right, because with a pencil, you're not just absorbing, you're doing something.
You're active, you're filtering, maybe summarizing, connecting ideas on the page. You might draw a quick diagram, scribble a question in the margin.
Personalizing it.
Exactly. The source calls it the pencil power of motor science. It lets you make the learning your own. Annotations, drawings, expressing things in your own way. That deepens understanding and gives you a sense of, ownership over the material.
And that active process feeds back into this brain page idea.
Directly. Which leads to their concept of shifting from a standard teaching classroom to a brain page classroom.
Okay, what's the difference there? A brain page classroom.
It's quite a shift. Instead of the teacher being the main source lecturing, the focus moves to the student interacting directly with the material, like a book using a pencil.
So the teacher becomes more of a facilitator.
A guide, yeah. A moderator for that direct knowledge transfer. The book, the pencil, the student's brain. That's the primary pathway.
Interesting. So less reliance on traditional teaching, potentially.
That's what the theory suggests, yes. That direct engagement might be sufficient for a lot of the transfer. They even mentioned dividing the classroom into 7 miniature schools.
7? Wow. To really personalize it.
Seems like it. To secure that personalized knowledge transfer for everyone.
And there's brain science behind this. They mentioned specific circuits. Cerebellar basal ganglia.
Yes, that specific circuitry. It's highlighted as being key for turning cognitive knowledge, what you understand conceptually, into motor knowledge.
Like the ability to actually use the knowledge, write about it, solve problems with it.
Exactly. It solidifies the learning through physical action, linking understanding to doing.
Okay, we keep bumping into learnography and learnodynamics. Let's really try and pin those down. What's learnography?
Right. So learnography, as they frame it, is basically the science or study of this specific type of knowledge transfer using active physical engagement, especially book and pencil. It's presented as grounded in applied neuroscience.
And they mention it's not necessarily expensive.
Yeah, because it leans on this book-to-brain mechanism, not necessarily high-tech tools.
Okay, so learnography is the overall approach, and learnodynamics is the how.
Pretty much. Learnodynamics is the mechanism itself, the hand movements, the resulting brain page development. It's what drives the quality of the learning, how well your brain processes the task.
Got it. And this also connects to something called the task formator. Sounds like developing problem-solving intuition.
That's a good way to think about it. The task formator is described as the brain's ability to develop, well, formatting abilities and intuitive ideas when you're tackling problems. It supposedly comes from a sixth dimension of knowledge transfer linked to the visual cortex. So visualization seems key here.
So learnodynamics helps build this task formator, which helps you use your brain page to solve complex things.
That seems to be the connection they're making, yes, using that structured knowledge intuitively.
This really emphasizes the role of the physical book, doesn't it? They talk about brain page books versus regular textbooks, calling them transfer books.
Yes, the distinction is important. Textbooks are often just information stores. These brain page books are designed specifically for this transfer process.
How so?
They're structured as modules meant to encourage that active pencil engagement, to facilitate brain development, not just passive reading. They're built for interaction.
So the materials themselves are designed to guide that brain page development, and the goal is higher performing students.
That's the argument, that focusing on this direct book-to-brain transfer is the way to develop students who can really apply what they learn effectively.
It makes sense. And does this idea reach beyond school? The source touches on, like, workplace skills.
It does, briefly. It suggests that the skills you hone through this active learning, what they call brain page modulation, are the skills you then apply at work to be productive.
So academic learning translates directly into market value.
That's the connection, yeah. The learnodynamics of how you learned impacts how you perform later.
And given how much digital learning there is now, what's the advice on sequencing?
The suggestion is pretty clear. Start with the brain page learning. Get that hands-on physical foundation with books and pencils first.
Build the base.
Right. Rehearse and finish that, then move on to digital learning for those chapters or topics. Build the foundation before adding the digital layers.
Okay, so let's try and bring it all together. This whole deep dive into pencil power, into learnography. It really highlights that active physical engagement still matters hugely in learning.
Absolutely. That simple act, hand, pencil, brain might be a really effective route for knowledge to actually transfer and stick.
It's a great reminder, isn't it, that sometimes the simplest tools, the most fundamental approaches, can have a really profound impact, even with all the tech we have.
Definitely. It challenges us to think about what really constitutes effective learning.
Which leaves us with a thought, doesn't it? In this constant push for digital solutions, are we maybe overlooking the basic power of engaging physically, hands-on with information? And what could that mean long-term for really deep understanding, for making learning last? Something for you to think about.
Definitely food for thought.
Reflect on how you've learned things best. Was there a physical element involved? It's worth considering. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.